Ranma 1/2 is the manga turned anime adventures of a fellow named Ranma who fell into a cursed well and becomes a girl whenever he gets hit with cold water. And then there's a whole bunch of fighting that happens because anything goes martial arts or whatever. I'll be honest, I've never seen the show, I've never read the manga, I'm largely ignorant of the lore, which is apparently quite expansive. But I've heard of Ranma. I know it got a few fighting games under its belt, and as far as I know, one of them actually made it to local shores. Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle for Super Nintendo. And yes, today we'll be playing this one game. And apparently this is supposed to be better than the other one I played. You know, the one that was turned into Street Combat locally. And I'll give Hard Battle this much. It is actually better than the previous Ranma game that came before in some key areas, but not others, and the end result is mixed, which is a step higher than absolute trash, so it's got that going for it at least. Ranma Hard Battle gives you 3 modes of play: the single-player arcade mode, a 2-player versus mode, and a 2-player team challenge mode, where you and a second player can put together teams of 5 to battle each other in elimination rounds, similar to the old group battles in the Street Fighter II game on Genesis. Speaking of characters, you have 8 characters to choose from, with 2 more unlocked once you beat the game. Yes, unlike the previous game, you're not just restricted to Ranma for this game in either male or female form. You can pick any of the characters to fight the rest, and each fighter has their own unique storyline that plays out in the introductory and ending sequences. Even the male and female forms of Ranma have slightly different characteristics and moves. And you could play as a panda, because any fighting game featuring a panda as one of its fighters has to be good, right? Much like the previous game, Hard Battle's control scheme comprises a punch button, a kick button, and the dreaded jump button in a fighting game, and also 2 triggers dedicated to blocking, much like in Mortal Kombat, but you could also hold back to block, which makes me wonder why they couldn't just program pressing up to jump, which feels much more natural in this sort of setting. This game was released in 1992. Street Fighter II was a thing. Anyway, special moves are handled a bit differently from the previous game, I think. Once again, they're very simplistic commands. Pressing both light and heavy buttons, or rapidly tapping said buttons, are the most complex you'll be getting. But some moves require you charge the heavy attack button, and press in a direction, and then let go of the button to execute the attack. Neat little thing is that the longer you charge a move, the more effective it becomes. A fireball that becomes bigger or travels farther. A slide move with more reach, that sort of thing. I actually like this and gives charge moves a different meaning here, or at least more worth. And honestly, I want to say there's been some improvement over the previous game. A larger roster of playable fighters from the get-go, and on a proper selection screen instead of the trickery needed for the previous game is much appreciated. The team challenge mode is fun for a 2-player lark. The combat feels a bit more solid in that collision detection isn't too bad here. It feels a bit spotty at times, but it's not as bad as it was previously, and the jumping feels less... well, it's largely inconsistent, depends on the characters, and kinda crap at times, but it amazingly doesn't kill off the rest of the game. If I'm going to be fair here, this isn't too bad. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be. The control scheme is still kinda crap though, and being able to press up to jump would have made things much more pleasant. But compared to the last game, Street Combat, whatever the other Ranma game was called originally, I could at least call Hard Battle a step up in that this isn't terrible. Not a huge step up, but a step up regardless. What has seen a bit of a step up is the graphical department. The sprites are bigger than before and are seemingly more animated, and those funny little animations for wins, losses, and KOs are still in there to give Hard Battle a bit of charm and personality, and yes, they're still somewhat amusing and cute. Character designs match those of the source material somewhat, which shouldn't be much of a surprise considering it's the second game, but yeah, Hard Battle looks good and better than its predecessor, which is all it needed to do on the graphical front. I even like some of the backgrounds featured here, they're well done. On that same front, the sound design is also pretty solid. Soundtrack's upbeat and fun, which fits the game. Again, not sure if any of the tunes are from the anime or whatever, but I don't think it really matters to the non-fan. There's some mild vocal bits in English, which threw me off when I first heard them. I'm wondering if that's a localization thing, and the Japanese version has some Japanese vocal bits, because if that's the case, that's actually quite forward-thinking. And the sound effects are nothing to write home about, they're there. I guess, but the rest of it's alright, I guess, audio-wise. Overall, Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle surprised me by how much of a better game it was compared to its predecessor, despite one of my main gripes from said predecessor, the awkward controls, still being prevalent with this one. Despite that, however, the actual mechanics seem smoother, the presentation seems, I don't want to say top-notch, but close to it, and is a generally more enjoyable fighting game that will not hold up to the top-level fighters of its day, but is still fairly decent. Whether you're a fan of the franchise or you just want a silly fighter to play on the Super NES, I'm honestly shocked by how much I enjoyed myself with this game, which makes me want to go back and play the other one to see if maybe I was too, nah, it still sucks.